So hello and welcome to another episode of Two Medics and One Mic. My name is Dr. Lasker.
And I'm Darusha Gunawardena.
You're not going to carry on with the rest of the stuff.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Cardiologist with...
Oh, yeah. I'm a cardiology registrar and I'm interested in intervention. Oh, my God. Yeah.
Well, for some of the people that don't know, so this podcast, what is it? It's about social media and medicine and med Twitter and it's just a medical conversation. That's what I'm getting now. I think we're kind of filling a void for people who kind of miss meeting up with their buddies and talking about medicine, if that's what the kind of thing they like to do. That's what I'm hearing. What about you, Therusha? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially now that, getting straight to it, people aren't allowed to go on lunch breaks together anymore. Apparently that's and otherwise they'll tell the medical director, oh my God, did you see that thread? So there's
go on.
So a junior doctor posted a copy of an email which pretty much says something along the lines of doctors going together for lunch, both leaving the ward, is a patient safety issue, and if they continue to do so, they will send an email to the medical director. Oh my God! What did you think?
My God, where does this stuff come from? It reminds me when I was an F1, and I think you're running around, you're absolutely exhausted, and I think I'm not saying it was me, but a few of us may have taken a few biscuits from the biscuit tin or something, and they're meant to be for patients, and then suddenly the email came out the next day. It's come about that some of the young doctors are taking biscuits, and these are for the patients, and this is counted as theft.
Yeah, well, it depends. I think the crux of this issue is which biscuits did you take, though, because not all NHS biscuits are created equal, are they?
I don't even remember. I said, I wasn't one of them. I was actually knocking back those, those Ensures. Do you remember those Ensures?
Oh, no way. What did they taste like?
Well, the thing is, no, you know what? I thought they were protein shakes. I thought, I'm exhausted, I'm tired. What is that? And they were like, oh, that's like a meal replacement. I thought, protein shake.
Right.
So and I drank it. And I think I had about 3. And oh my God, it was so disgusting. You can actually feel the oiliness in your mouth. It's actually like eating butter.
Yeah, it's like 7,000 calories and 200 mils, isn't it? So literally,
it was a mistake. It was a mistake.
Anyway, I mean, it's funny that you should also mention that, because there was a whole thing about, I've seen it in trusts that I've worked in where they've been like, doctors should not drink tea and coffee from the tray. And they're like, well, then we could leave the ward. And then there's a whole thing, isn't it, where recently there was some emails circulating, and then kind of on Twitter, where they were saying that if you're to consume food in the COVID area, then they may blame you if someone else got COVID, and then they were they even suggested manslaughter charges for I don't know, having a cup of tea in a patient area. Which is, I
don't know.
It sounds gross.
Where do these people come from? Do you think? Where do they come from when they? Do they just think, should we have a bit of a snigger and see how far we can take? Manslaughter, manslaughter for eating your food. Are they completely balmy? I just find that completely ridiculous. I think, it's just the idea that, what bothers me actually, Therusha, I think anyway. What really bothers me is just the idea that it's the constant push that doctors should do nothing but work. That's just it. If you're looking like you're not working, then you're in trouble, right? That's not acceptable. Do you remember ages ago there was this thing that came about that doctors should not be drinking coffee in public because it makes it look like they're not doing anything. Do you remember that? There was an article that popped up years ago.
Okay.
Maybe it was a couple of years ago, and I was just like, man, when are they going to get off our backs? You're not allowed to have coffee. You're not allowed to be going to have lunch with your buddies. What is this?
I do sometimes feel that, I feel a little bit uneasy actually, when they're relatives say around the nursing station or whatever, and you're maybe just talking to a colleague, and in the back of my mind I'm like, oh, maybe they think I'm just I'm typing stuff, maybe they think I'm just messing about or whatever. And I have seen it where sometimes people have complained saying, oh, the doctors at the desk or the doctors and the nurses would just seem like they're having such a great time, and actually, well, they could all be miserable and not talk to each other and stuff, but I don't know, how much...
But don't you think that's sad? Why do we always need... if you're sitting there having a bit of a giggle with your buddies, but you're still doing your work, why is that seen as a bad thing? Actually, recently there was another thing that I think had a bit of a Twitter storm where someone had taken a photo of a doctor who'd fallen asleep because they were so exhausted. And then the implications are, they're sleeping on the job, but it's no, that person was so exhausted that they've fallen asleep. That's not fair to keep having a go at us about this. And then it happens all the time up and down the country, I don't know whether it's up and down the country, but I remember a few trusts I was working at, they were like, no, you can't have a place to sleep because you're being paid to work. You cannot have a restroom. And it's what? We're not machines.
I think the BMA have really pushed back on that, though, haven't they? Or at least now. Well, I mean, that's nonsense, isn't it? But I have heard of like colleagues saying that in kind of recent memory, where they've been told, oh, you know, like on a night shift, you're supposed to be working, you're not allowed to sleep, which I think is ridiculous. Like, I think, you know, how you choose to have your break is up to you, and if you want to bank some sleep or whatever, then surely you should be able to do that. I just think it's just like people police. Like, I think it kind of there's this idea cultivated of how we're supposed to appear and how we're supposed to behave, and. It's just nonsense, isn't it? Like, everyone's different. Like, why can't?
But I think like it's like with a lot of things. Like, you know, recently, I mean, I'm going to go off subject here, but there is a point. There's normally a point to what I'm saying. Right. So, like, you know, with I think one of the Jenner, you know, like Kim Kardashian's sisters. I think the young one, she like she got named as like the youngest self-made billionaire, right? She got named as the youngest Forbes, youngest billionaire ever, or something like that, right?
Okay, I'm waiting for you, man. I'm waiting.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Like, and people went nuts. People are like, oh no, that's not acceptable. You know, she's from a millionaire family. You can't be a self-made billionaire if you're a millionaire. I was like, where did that rule come from? She still went from millions to billions. That doesn't make any sense to say something like, oh, she can't. There's like a rule behind this, right? And it's the same thing. Like, it's just the idea. I think the public perception of certain things, like what a self-made millionaire is and a self-made billionaire is almost the same thing as what the public perception of what a doctor is. Like, you know, it's the same. You know, like when people watch the Alan Sugar show, you know, The Apprentice. Like, they've got this idea that you've got to be a very harsh business person. You've got to take someone out and all the rest of it, which may be true, but it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have. But then, if it doesn't fit that sort of mold of what people think, it doesn't make for good entertainment, and it's not believable, and it's not what they want to see. So I think my point is, I think the general public and the managers and everyone who's in charge think that doctors are absolute workhorses and should do nothing else but work, right? And if we're seen to be doing anything else but being a doctor, if we're seen to be, you know, like even recently, you know, with the whole strikes were happening, and I think the guy that was in charge of the BMA, he ran a photography business on the side. Like, his hobby was to do photography. Yeah. He used to go do some wedding photos on occasion, and he got called up on it on like Channel 4. They were saying, you know, is it acceptable for you to do photography in your spare time, like as a side business? And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, we're human beings too. We should be able to do like human being things, like have a coffee, have lunch with your buddies at work, have a bit of a giggle. Like, what's wrong with that?
I do remember actually at the time they also used social media pictures, didn't they? They were like, oh, these people are like on holiday. Like, there's some people who are on holiday and drinking champagne. They're like, oh, champagne medics. Do you remember that? That was
exactly. It's like, now we're embarrassed to be. Yeah, exactly. It was like, you're embarrassed to, first of all, like, make a wage, right? That's what it feels like these days. And also, you're embarrassed to do anything but medicine or talk about medicine. Like, it just seems a bit like, well, we're human beings, we've got other interests. And, you know, actually, one of the good things about Twitter, I think, is sometimes when you do scroll through, someone shares the other interests that they have, and you find out they're an artist. They like to draw, and their pictures are absolutely fantastic. And just little things like that, it just makes you realise, you know what, we're more than one thing, you know, we're not just medics all the time. Yeah. And I think these guys who give these emails about manslaughter and all this stuff, I just think they just completely lost it. I don't know where they're coming from with that.
At the heart of one of those emails, there's just some, like, Jobsworth who just, like, thinks it sounds really, like, clever in their head, but... and they're just really angry and just kind of feel like people have to operate within this very, very narrow kind of field of view. And then yeah, as you say, like, I just wonder what's going through their mind, but what a kind of restricted worldview you must have to kind of think that way. But that's interesting because that does remind me of that other thread on Twitter, which was about tattoos, and people were showing their tattoos and stuff. Because, like, there's kind of a depth of feeling about that, isn't there? About whether doctors should have tattoos or not. Do you have any tattoos, Imran?
No. You know what? I was thinking about this because I saw the tattoo thing, and I was really thinking to myself, like, I don't know what it is about tattoos. Like, I'm just not into tattoos. It's not a thing. And, you know, when I was growing up, if someone had a tattoo when I was a kid growing up and I saw someone tattoo, I'd be like, well, that guy's tough. I don't want to mess with that person. They're a tough guy. If they've got a tattoo, they're tough. I ain't messing with them. Man. These days, exactly. But these days, when someone's got tattoos, like, who doesn't have it? Dude, you know, like in Basildon, right? I work in Basildon, Essex, right? It's as if people just walked into the status shop and a big explosion happened. Literally everyone's got tattoo in Basildon. That's what it feels like. And it's actually really fun. Like, it's kind of fun. I have to ask them, like, oh, you know, what does that tattoo mean? Why have you got that tattoo? And you know what? Most of the time, you know, I used to think that tattoos need to mean something. You're going to have something marked on your skin for life. Most of the time, it's just to look good. That's what they say to me. So, all right, fair enough, you know. Yeah. But, I don't know. What do you think? Yeah.
I mean, I really wanted a tattoo. I really did.
Really?
Yeah, but
okay, wow.
I really
what
did.
What stopped you?
Well, one, because I was like, oh, but then people would have to see it, and so like it'd have to look really good. It'd have to be, and I couldn't like in my mind agree on like where I'd put it. So like that was one thing, and two, the prospect of it being rather painful and taking quite a long time. Like people were like, oh yeah, this one took 4 hours, and I'd be like, 4 hours of someone dragging something sharp. I was like, oh no, I'd cry, I'd
No
cry,
thanks, no
and I'd be
thanks.
like, can you be drunk to have it? And they're like, no, that's really frowned upon. I'd be like, oh, so that was problem number 2, and then problem number 3 is like my, as you'll know very well from me, like my flittish kind of personality, whereby I kind of go from, oh, this is a great idea, I'm like really into this is like my favorite thing, and then suddenly I'll be like, oh, actually I hate that, it's terrible.
Oh, man.
So like I was just convinced that if I did decide on something, although I was a bit like, I'm gonna get Batman, I want something Batman, because I've always loved Batman ever since I was
Yeah,
like
I
a
know
kid.
you always
And
loved
even
Batman, yeah.
even though I'm like an old man now, I'm still like, oh yeah, I want like Batman LEDs and this and that. And so I remember at the time being like, oh yeah, maybe I'll get Batman, and my girlfriend at the time was like, you're gonna grow out of that. You're gonna feel real shit. And she was wrong. I would not have done. But there you go.
It's not too late. It's not too late. I mean, I'm not that I'm encouraging you to have it, but like genuinely, some I know exactly. I guess with Batman, it means something to you. Like you grew up with it. It means something. I don't know. I mean, maybe you think you're the Dark Knight.
I am.
Actually, I am.
Yes.
No, I am. I work in the dark room. I don't know what you're talking about. But
you can be
the thing is,
the
like,
other guy, or what's it, Iron Man?
What, Robin or something?
Oh, yeah, Robin.
So like the thing with your thing is like when I've had a few patients that turned up and like okay, I was doing scanning a patient and I noticed he had a camel tattooed on his toe.
A what? A camel?
Yeah.
Cool.
And then I looked at him and said, why have you got a camel on your toe? And he looked at me and he was like,
why not?
What do you think? And I was like,
oh, camel toe.
Oh. You didn't get it either. I'm glad I'm not the only one. He just looked at me like, you're an idiot. I thought you were a doctor. I'm like, well, I didn't think of a. What is that? Honestly, and then I've had it all. Like I've had one guy, and he had like a proper 6-pack of beer, like tattooed on where his abs would be, and he was like, well, I was never going to get a 6-pack, so I decided to get one tattooed. I was like, yeah, but oh man, honestly, like and then we had another guy, and he came in, and he this was actually pretty sad, and he took it as a joke. I thought I was going to get, I thought I was going to go straight to pals with this one, but he was playing football and he grazed his knee and it got really infected and got really swollen up and the skin was kind of peeling off. It was horrendous, right? And he had a happy face on his knee, but because of the way it was all like mangled up now, the happy face kind of became all curved and like kind of curved to the edge. And I went, that happy face ain't so happy anymore, is it? And he looked at me and he went, all right, I guess I had that coming. You got to hand it to him. He was really nice about it. He was really lovely about it, honestly. But I don't know. I don't get tattoos. I think people get really emotional about them. And I've got a cousin who's got tattoos, and I don't really. No, they just don't do it for me.
No, fair enough.
Just.
I think they're awesome. I mean, I just don't know. I always feel a bit funny in terms of, because I'm genuinely like, when I see someone with a tattoo, I do want to ask them. I'm like itching to ask them, like, where does it come from? What does it mean?
Why don't you?
But sometimes I don't know. Maybe they just don't want to talk about it. I don't know.
I assume that's why they had it. No.
No. Well, what if it's?
I don't
know. Yeah, I guess so. Like a sleeve one or something. But maybe they're just tired. Because it's an easy question to ask, isn't it? It's like when I dislocated my shoulder and I have a sling on it. Everyone, like, you just get random people. It's like walking up to me like, oh, so tell me what happened to your arm? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. But like, it's not quite the same thing. Well, it's kind of.
Are you talking about when we were in Australia? Is that the time you dislocate it again after that?
Yeah, I dislocated it twice after that.
Oh, really? Oh, God. Yeah. I mean, I remember that. That was the first time you did it with us, isn't it? When we were surfing in Australia back in the day.
The other 2 times we're doing jiu-jitsu, and then I got it fixed. Did I tell you? I got it fixed. And then,
no.
So, like, the second or third time I was doing jiu-jitsu and lifting this guy who, I think at that time I still was quite light, like I was about 12 stone, and I was throwing this guy who's about 16, 17 stone, and my arm just couldn't cope. And so I threw him, but then my arm came out as well. And then I remember I went to fracture clinic with my sling, like the next day, and I was like, oh, so when can I return to exercise? And there was this orthopedic like fellow, and he was a big guy. He's a big dude, and I don't mean like in a, I just mean like he was just not exercised ever in his life.
Okay.
And he literally said to me,
fat shaming.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a horrible person. But the thing was, he just said to me. He just like, I was like, oh, when can I return to exercise? And he just kind of like, just moved, he did this hand gesture and was like, you can't do that anymore. And then I was like, what am I going to do for exercise? He's like, I don't know, swim. And then it was like, but the way he said it was like, get out of my room kind of way. I was so angry with him. I was like, and so then I went and got it. Like, I got my labrum repaired.
So here's a question for you. In that situation, when you're, and I think this came up on Twitter not so long ago, when do you volunteer to another medical professional that you're a medical professional? Like, is that an awkward thing? I always find it awkward. What do you think?
The thing is that if you don't do it at the beginning, then it's going to be awkward when you do put it in. And I always find that there's that situation where people don't tell you, but then they coyly put in like my sats were, and I just like they kind of drop in a bit of jargon, like oh my musical. No, they won't say they're musical, but do you know what I mean? They'll kind of like say something.
Yeah, I mean that's what I do sometimes. But then I think I don't know whether are you being rude by saying, by the way, I'm a doctor as well. Like you need to.
I literally
treat me a
will be
certain
like,
way.
oh, when I've done it, I've been
Yeah.
look, full disclosure, I'm a cardiology registrar. Interested in intervention. No, I feel like I just get out there and whatever. Like, depends on what it is, I guess. But like, I think if I've gone to my GP with a rash, then I will also say, look, not that I go to my. What have I implied? I don't know. But I will say something along the lines of, I have no idea. So please speak to me like I'm an idiot because I'm an idiot. So
I'm an idiot.
Yeah,
fair enough. Well, I don't know, man. Like I find it. I don't know. I find it a bit. I always find it awkward. And I think, especially when my wife was going to give birth. I remember she was gonna. This nurse came in and she had all the cannula stuff ready, and I kind of peeked over and she had a grey, and I was like, whoa, is that a grey? Are you putting a grey into her? And she goes, why is that a problem? I was like,
it's big.
Grey's like the biggest one that you've got. And she goes, are you? And I was like, yeah, I'm a doctor. I'm a consultant. Grey's like the biggest one you've got. And she was like, no, this is what we do. And I was like, okay, all right, you carry on then. And my wife said, is everything okay? And I was like, oh, yeah, don't worry. You just carry on, right? And I was thinking, I wouldn't want to be the one getting a grey. And then, like, she messed it up. And then she came up to me and goes, I got nervous because you're here.
No. See, look what you did. I see.
I know. And I was like, oh God, I just inflicted a bit of pain on my poor wife because I said that. And so now I feel a bit, and the similar happened with my dad. Like we ended up going to A&E. And interestingly, actually, the people in that place, when I turned up, I told them, look, I tried to do the full disclosure thing, and they were actually pretty mean to me. They were like, well, if you're a doc, why did you bring your dad in? I mean, because I'm worried about him. I mean, that is why I brought him in. And then similar situation, like they were going to try and stick cannula in, and they were just messing it up. And then she goes, "Look, I'm not able to do this," and she walked off. And I was like, "He's got the biggest, fattest veins in the world. What are you talking about?" So she walked off, and I was like, "Fine, I'll do it." So I stuck a cannula in, right? Oh my God, I got into so much trouble.
Did you?
I got into so much trouble. Yeah. The matron came out, like, who do you think you are? You can't come into the department and like put a cannula in your dad. I'm like, yeah. I guess I was trying to help. I mean, like you guys are struggling. I didn't want to get stabbed again and again. Like, sorry. Yeah. And they really, really were upset with me. But my experience in that time when I volunteered of myself being a doc, it wasn't pleasant. They were actually very, very rude to me and very, very mean. And so I don't know how to play it. Like, do I say it or do I not say it? I mean,
I think you should be able to do it either way and still be treated like a basic human being.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess I can understand like the nervousness that someone might feel if you're a doc and you come in. I mean, yeah, fair enough. I mean, that wasn't great, but I don't know, man. It's people are weird. I mean, we've said this again and again. I don't know. Like someone came, the number of times I've been at an ultrasound, right? Yeah. And then someone knocks on the door and they're like, "Hi, are you the consultant?" Yeah, I am. So, I'm a doc, and I was just wondering if you could, kind of squeeze me in, and yeah, no worries, no problem. I'll scan you, not an issue, right? Like if I can help, I'll help. Like I know how hard it is, I know how busy we are, and me trying to help out is like the only little perk that we have. So I always try my best, but I don't think everyone is. My personal experience so far has not been that people have been that positive when I volunteered. Who I am, like, I'm Batman. Everyone, I'm Batman,
But like speaking of those perks that you might get from just allowing that camaraderie, right? I guess, or like that kind of a collaborate. We're all kind of in this together. We're on the same. So, I mean, if a policeman, say for example, had asked you to make him a coffee, would you be like, "Oh yes, officer, was that? How many sugars do you take? Do you have milk?" Or what would you do?
You know what? Like, I'm so oblivious these days in my own world. I probably would have just made it for him.
Would you?
Off, like,
no, that's not true. Look, this is.
I don't know, man. You reckon? I don't know.
no way. You're like, oh, this when you're handed an ultrasound list, you're like, oh my god, it's not in alphabetical order, and where are my like?
I've never done that.
Where are all my yellow M&Ms?
I've never done that. That's not. Look, just for full disclosure, what actually happened was I came to work one day, okay, and they suddenly gave me a list and said, oh, these are all the portable ultrasounds you're meant to be doing. I was like, since when am I doing portable ultrasounds? What are you talking about? Yeah. So, oh yeah, we just thought that you do them. And okay, I don't know where this came from. So I looked at the list and it was like shoulder ultrasound, and I thought, okay, I'm doing what ward stuff for shoulder ultrasound? What are you talking about? Yeah, it was like stuff like, oh, lumps been there, and it was like, these are all COVID patients and these are shoulder ultrasounds. I know I'm the MSK guy, but like, these aren't emergencies. And then they kind of went, so you're not doing it, Dr. Lasker? No. I've never said no before in my life. And I was like, no. Can I say no? Yeah. And I kind of looked around and everyone kept quiet, and then they took the list from me and I was like, am I in trouble?
Yeah.
Am I in trouble? Okay, I'm going to walk off now. And I kind of look back every now and again thinking, oh wow,
the power of saying no.
List. Yeah, well, exactly. I've never really said no before. I mean, they know that. I think that's why they did it. Yeah. Because I don't normally say no, so they just jumped me with it, and I just didn't think it was appropriate, not at all. So that's why
I should explain. Anyway, I should explain what my comment was supposed to mean. So there was a tweet by a colleague, a female doctor, who was working in A&E, a busy shift. She said she was walking to the desk, I think in the middle of doing some work, and a police officer said, I shouldn't paraphrase, but something along the lines of, can you get me a cup of coffee? Yeah. And I guess...
But go
on. Some of the... I think one of the things that I certainly was a take-home... or like maybe a judgment made, was that would that policeman have asked a male doctor to do the same?
That's the thing, right? I feel like we're in the danger of mansplaining, right? And I hope we don't fall into that situation. Yeah. But I never really noticed much of an issue between a female colleague and a male colleague until I was doing an ultrasound list with a consultant, and I was a registrar at the time, and she was a female consultant. And every single patient that walked into the room came and spoke to me, sat opposite me, walked right past her like she didn't even exist. And then afterwards I said, does that happen to you a lot? She goes, all the time. All the time people walk past me thinking that I'm not the consultant, and they'll always think that the young registrar is the consultant instead of me. And it's just, it's to do with public perceptions. Like there's that riddle. Have you heard that riddle about like a father and a son get into an accident and they go to hospital, and the doctor walks in and says, sorry, I can't operate on this patient. They're my son, and walks off. What's the answer to the riddle? And the answer to the riddle is that female. The doctor is a mum. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like most people, and I actually tried it on a few people. When I say most, like I've done a proper study on it, but I've tried it on a few people, and it works. That riddle works. People do get pushed to think that a doctor is a male, and I don't think not that I know the entire situation, but I would be surprised if that policeman would come up to you, Theresa, or me, and ask us for a coffee. And so we don't know what it's like to be in that situation, because has it ever happened to you? I can't even imagine it happened to me, which is why I thought it probably would.
But I operate under a kind of a different, so like if someone asked me to do something like that, I do it so bad. Like it's like when Joe asked me to do something at home, like I do it so badly. I do it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do it. And I do it so badly that there's no way that I'll ever get asked to do it again. So what I'll do is, like, say for example, if this policeman had asked me for a coffee, I probably would have just gone and got some cold water and then add loads of milk, and then I'd put I'd put a bit of coffee in there and then put it in like a microwave or something for like, I don't know, 15 seconds, so it's like tepid warm, and just hand it like, there you go. But I'd be like, oh, there you are, like, and just give it like a really dirty cup. So then they think I'd tried, and then I'd stay there and watch them have a sip of it. No, I wouldn't do any of that. But my point, no, I haven't been asked that, and I think because people obviously can tell from my face that I probably would do something stupid like that. But I think the thing that kind of surprised, so obviously there were lots of people in support, like, Twitter, obviously there are lots of people, I guess maybe the people gravitate towards it who tend to be kind of like on the nicer side, but then there were people who were being like, well, maybe you should have, like there was this person who's like, I'm an A&E consultant and I would have done it, and there's loads of apologists, like female as well. I'm like, oh, okay.
I guess the crux of the issue is like, who did the policeman think she was when he asked that question? But it'd be unlikely that a police. I mean, I would be surprised if a member of the public or a police would ask a consultant or a doctor, "Can you go make me a cup of coffee?"
Well, then I guess then there was that other issue, isn't it? Like, well, yeah, but then there was a nurse who was like, "Well, you know what? You think because you're a doctor, you're too important to make the coffee." And it's like, well, no. I mean, like, even if the policeman had asked, well, anyone, like, you know, they're doing their job, like, you have 2 arms and 2 legs, could you not do it? Oh, like, you couldn't get away because you're handcuffed to I don't know, it just seemed like, well, there's no provision for you guys to, you know, when you're doing your job, for you to have, like, a break to like, get drinks, is that not? It just seems, like, really strange, like, if that's the case, like, if you're chained to someone as part of your job and there's no provision for you to go and get yourself basic hydration and stuff, you know, or to go to the toilet, then that's a problem with the working conditions. It's not a problem with the doctor or the nurse or anyone who's doing their job and suddenly has to go make you a coffee. I mean, it just seems
that's interesting, isn't it? Like, you know, when you see these policemen walking around with a prisoner, you know, they sometimes come into hospital and they're actually handcuffed to the prisoner, right? Like, what happens if the policeman needs to go to the bog? Like, what do they do?
I think
I've
seen it happen, actually. Then? Sometimes it's really odd. It depends, actually. With police, actually, like, the police generally...
But they don't pee.
Yeah, they don't. They just pee into their hats. They've got those really soft... No. I don't know. But, like, the times where it's been most odd or the most kind of, like, over the top have been with prison guards, I've found sometimes. So, like, I remember... So, like, not that long ago, I had a patient... Oh, not that long ago, I might say that. Anyway, there was a time... At some point, where like a person had to have a cath, they hadn't had an angiogram, and the prison guard was like, "Oh, come in," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, mate, but you're gonna get like radiated and stuff, and if you're gonna be like handcuffed, literally, you know, there's really tiny handcuffs where your arms are together, then you're gonna get a lot of radiation. Okay, you can wear all like leads and stuff, but your head's gonna be like right up, like that's not cool, dude." Like, and then he was like, "Oh no, we need like a risk assessment and all this kind of thing," and it got really complicated. And I was like, "Oh, just take the handcuffs off and maybe just stand at either door, and if he tries to make a break for it, then you can just suddenly rugby tackle him to the floor." But it was just but like there have been a few times where I remember the person I was seeing another patient, it's not the same one, this guy was fine, and obviously I did the cath, so it was absolutely fine, but there's another patient I remember who was like really, really unwell, and the guy was like still like attached to him, and I'm like, dude, like this guy, you might need to shock this person, like, you know, and he's like, "Oh, it's fine, I can take it," is what he said.
Oh, you're
like,
joking?
Yeah,
no way.
I was like,
no way,
bro. And he was just like, it's such a like bro thing to say, like, "Oh yeah, I'm hard, I could take it." I'm like,
I bet you he thought this was going to be the beginning. That would be his origin story. That this is the point where he'd become like raided or something.
Yeah. But mate, I remember in that moment, I just, if it wasn't the fact that the patient was actually kind of sick, I just wanted to turn over to him and be like, "Mate, that's the saddest, most bro-like thing I've ever heard, and you need to sort your life out." But I didn't. But Jesus Christ.
You know, like, I think a consultant told me that something like there was a patient he brought in and he was meant to be doing a biopsy, and the policeman had to be attached to this patient, and then at some point, like, he was about to put the needle in, and then the patient the prisoner fell off the bed, and it's because the policeman fainted and dragged him off. He was like, "No, I'm not very good at needles," and just fainted right there and then, and they were like all over the floor. He was like, "What on earth is going on? Is the guy trying to make a break for it?" Can you imagine? You know, I'd be holding the biopsy and you're like, "Okay, I'm going to protect myself." Oh, strange world.
Oh, God.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Like what you said. I mean, you're talking about like some nurses saying, "Are you too good to make a coffee?" Right? And that actually brings me to think to the subject that we were talking about earlier. And it's about the idea that, you know, this thread went out, and I thought it was quite sweet actually, Thrush. I really like what you did, but people were talking about when talk about a time when a teacher said that you wouldn't make it or something, or said something you wouldn't make it, and you ended up making it. And actually you flipped it on the other side and said, "You know what, I want to talk about a teacher that did a really positive thing for me." And you talked about Mr. Latif. Yeah, Mr. Latif. Yeah, you had a really positive experience with that guy, and you tweeted him. Yeah. And then you discovered him on Twitter. I know. You know, it's so weird, isn't it?
Yeah, because then I was a bit like, "Oh, should I?" And then I was like, "Oh, maybe." But then I thought, a lot of water's gone under the bridge. And I was like, "I don't even remember who I am." And then I was like, "Oh, that might be a bit weird." And then I was like, I called him Dr. Latif. And I was like, "Oh, is he Dr. Latif? Or is he not?" And I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, I wasn't sure either. I don't remember him being a doctor.
And I was like, "Oh, no." And then I was like, "Oh, it's too much." But anyway, he replied and he was really nice. And he said that was a good pupil and stuff. And I was like, "Oh, God."
It was a bit of a generic response, mate.
It was.
You know, it's like when, it was like, you know, yeah, but it was nice of him. It was nice of him to reply. But what I found interesting about that is, like, you know, a whole load of medics were talking about like the time when someone said they weren't going to make it, and now they're a doc, and I was like, oh, really? I mean, does that mean that being a medic means you made it? Is that what this is? Because, you know,
do you not feel like you made it?
I think it's personal, isn't it? Like, it depends on what you really want. But the point, I guess, from my point of view, what I think anyway, is that I've said a few times, I didn't do that great. But I had friends who got straight A's and straight A stars, but they didn't go into medicine. They went into accountancy. They went to the city. But I started noticing that me just being a doc was like more of a special thing amongst people. Like, people used to be like, well, people are, you know, they're like, oh wow, you're a doc, that's really cool. But I'd be like, yeah, but my grades are terrible. And like, the only difference between me and my friend who's far cleverer than me is that I went to med school and he decided to actually go make some real money. But you know what I mean? Like, so I guess on some level I knew that was the case. Like, I knew that if I went into medicine, it would feel like I'd made it, because otherwise, why? You know, when I was growing up, the richer person, the person who was successful in our society, was a doc. So why would I not want to be a doc? But it's interesting that, like, I guess I clearly am not the only one that felt like I'd made it. But do I feel like I made it now? I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm at not at the very end, at the beginning of being a consultant, and yeah. It's nice. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've talked about like how things are nicer, and also like you're much more in charge of what you want to do. Like, if you don't want to do certain things, you don't do it. If you want to live somewhere, you do it. You know, there's certain things that are not really the same as when you're a reg. Go on.
Well, I think though the kind of the reverence that we get as a profession isn't so much because we're not rock stars. It's more, but we are privileged though, right? Like, we see people, you ask them intrusive questions and people assume that that's because you're doing it in their interest, and they share with you things that they wouldn't share with many other people, and they, you know, and they're naked around you often, and it's just all those things that I guess we wield a kind of power in that way, and so I think that kind of reverence probably comes from that privileged position we have. Rather, I mean, the idea that we've made it, I think, probably is because not just. I mean, obviously, the money side of it is good though, right? It's not bad, but I think it's the other things though, because people recognise how difficult it is to make it to the end. I think because so many people, to try and get the grades, trying to get to med school, trying to get into a particular type of training, and then even just staying within medicine. There's the attrition, and also like I think people probably respect that there are people who do it who are kind of smart or whatever, but obviously there's a commitment to it that's probably outside of what you might get back from it. So the amount that you put in terms of a monetary reward is probably not necessarily equivalent, but the other stuff that you get with it, I guess, like the way you.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, this is an interesting topic that you bring up, because I've thought about it a lot, right? Like, I think someone was talking to me once and said, "Oh, you know, do you feel bad that like you don't get paid as much as a footballer or something?" Right? And I was like, "Why would I feel bad about that?" And they were like, "Oh, yeah, but you know, you're dealing with life and death." And it's like, I know we do an important job. I know that we're dealing with people's lives. I know that, but in this reality, in this life or the society that we have, there's not actually that much importance on that. Like, people's lives are relatively cheap compared to someone kicking a ball through a net. I mean, that's just the way it is, right?
Oh, because of the values that we have as a society.
Yeah, exactly. The value, like, you know, the monetary value, the value that you have is just not, it's never going to be the same. Like, you may save someone's life, which is a fantastic thing, but you're not going to be making, you know, the same as someone kicking a football through a net. And that's because of the way society works. We're not living in a society where the value of a human life is as much as kicking a football. It's the truth. It's the truth. I mean, I'm not bringing that up just because of the whole Super League thing that was going on this week, but I'm just saying, like, for some the society doesn't work in a way that you know, we think that lives are important, but I don't think society values life in the same way. And I think we see that happen repeatedly with regards to the way, you know, we see society is. Like, you know, we've got people who are homeless, who are starving. I mean, if that was the most important thing, then surely we could be doing something about it, couldn't we?
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because we talk about how people regard like medics and stuff, right? Like, but then on the other side, did you see there was that whole scandal? But like the thing by Benefit Makeup, where they were encouraging their kind of stylists and stuff not to engage with people who work within the NHS because they're slightly more likely to have COVID, and so to protect their workers, they were like, don't don't serve people from the NHS, and people were like,
Wow.
what? What? Like, it was, and then like Benefit kind of did this weird little retraction thing where they were like, well, we have changed our policy. We've listened. And it was like that apology, that guy who came back was like with his apology, which was to anyone that's willing to listen, and then kind of went off with his little apology. It was that kind of apology, like a little bit like,
Yeah.
But it still was kind of mean spirited to begin with. Like, oh, you know, what did you see that? No.
Yeah, no, I didn't see
Do you
that.
use
So they
Benefit?
were saying that they weren't going to. Yeah, no, I don't know what that is. What is Benefit? What is it?
What does?
Yeah, what is that? What is that?
I know what that is. What does that say about me as a husband? I mean, Benefit is a type of makeup. So it's a brand. It's really good actually. Like I use it myself. But like, you know, the little kind of the boxes that they come in are really cute. So they're quite nice for like Christmas. So like when I'm like running out of like gift ideas for Jo, I'm like, let's get some Benefit stuff in there as well because she just.
Wow. Okay. So
Benefit,
they were saying they weren't going to serve NHS people because of the potential risk of being exposed to COVID.
Yeah, and they were like the risk to our workers, and so I was like, oh.
Wow. Didn't that flip? That seems like a flip because there was a time when everyone was like, NHS, yay! You were. I mean, honestly, I loved going to the supermarket and getting like preferential entry to the supermarket. Yeah, man, it was good. You know, and then I think the other day actually, my young kid was playing in the car and he must have left the lights on.
Right.
And then the battery went dead. I was like, oh, great, this is ridiculous, right? But I was working from home because as soon as the COVID happened, the radiologist, did you notice the radiologist disappeared? Like that, I don't know what happened with you guys, but radiologist disappeared. We just were reporting
You don't know what happened with us guys. Stuff happened.
Yeah.
Stuff happened.
Yeah, it's something. Yeah, I mean, radiologists were just sitting at home. Most of us just ran away. So I was sitting there and I was thinking, oh, what am I going to do? So I went on the internet as an NHS, breakdown, and turned out the AA were doing like some sort of NHS recovery for free or something. I was like, yeah. So I called them up and I was like, hi, my car battery's down. Can you come fix it? I'm NHS, by the way. And they were like, yeah, straight away. And they came in, they fixed it. They were like, key worker, he's a key worker. And they sorted it out straight. They were awesome. But, and I was buying some gym gear recently. And then, I was trying to get, the thing is like,
you take it back to the bank,
I'm not going to get too technical about it. Oh, mate. So I'm not going to get too technical about it. But then it turned out that the upgrade from what I was buying, was something that I wanted. So I messaged him and said, hey, I'm an NHS worker. I was wondering if you could give that other one for a bit of a discount. I said, well, you can have it for the same price as the one that you just bought. There you go, it's done, it's upgraded. I was like, all right, nice. So, had its perks. And then now you've got this situation with Benefit is saying, no.
It's all because you just ruined it for everyone else. You used up all that goodwill, and now.
Hang on, no, mate. I'm saving lives out here. I'm writing those. I'm writing those reports so you know what to do.
Clinical correlation is advised. Yeah.
Exactly. Saving lives.
Yeah,
Authorize and move on. Let's go. Okay, yeah.
Good one. Okay, so
but coming back to the tattoo and medics thing quickly, like there was a guy, I won't say his name just in case it doesn't be mentioned, but there was a guy that we went to med school with, and he had one tattoo, with a tattoo of a snake on his arm. And then a few years later, I remember he was telling me he was going to get it removed because a consultant had told him that, if you want to kind of make it anywhere, you probably need to get rid of that tattoo. And he decided to get rid of it, yeah. And then actually at the time, I felt like I sort of partly agreed with him because I felt as though, at the time I felt like, oh, well, I guess if a patient sees you with a massive tattoo down your arm, they might think differently. They might not feel so comfortable. But I wonder whether that's the case anymore. Because, like I said, when we were younger, or when I was younger, if someone had a tattoo, that'd be an aggressive thing. It'd be like, oh, that person must be, they must be tough. But these days it's like more of a fashion thing, isn't it? Like they look cool. I mean, they do look cool. Don't get me wrong, they do look cool.
I mean, should it really matter why the person gets a tattoo? I think the thing is though, like you could kind of replace. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit dramatic, but maybe you could replace the tattoo thing with people just look different, right? And so in the same way that you're like, they might see someone with a tattoo and not feel comfortable. They could not see it. They could see someone with dark skin and be like, I don't feel comfortable, or see like a male doctor and be like, I don't feel comfortable. I think the thing is that ultimately, where's the problem lie? And ultimately, like, if the person seeing you is going to, I mean, like, it's not going to have any bearing on the care you receive, is it? Like, whether they have a tattoo
that's true.
like 20 years ago or whatever, or 10 years ago, or they really have got loads of tattoos. I just think, like, does it really matter? Also, tattoos look really cool. But to the side, like, I just think, like, should it really make a difference? But the funny thing was, I did hear, like, one of my bosses make some comment when he saw, like, a sister with it. And he's like, oh, back in my day, like, no nurse. And I was just like, mate, just sound so old. Like, it must be exhausting being like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like the way that person looks. That's not becoming. That's not becoming. That's not becoming. Like, Jesus, like, so many opinions. No. There's like so many opinions. Just like, you know what? Life is so much better if you just had fewer opinions and stuff, and just like, oh yeah, that's how it is. Okay, cool.
You know what? Actually, mate, I've reminded me of a massive gaff I did once. Massive. Oh, no. This is big. I thought, this is it. I'm done. I was literally, you know, sometimes you think there's a gaff that's so big, I'm just going to walk out. I'm done now. So I was doing an ultrasound on this patient, and then I looked at, and I think on her sort of back thigh, she had. All right, do you remember that movie Gremlins? Do you remember that movie?
Yeah,
I know. Gremlins with the little.
Wait, you were too small for that. What were you doing up watching?
No, what are you talking about? It's Gremlins was like back in the day. I love Gremlins.
Gremlins was like in the 90s.
She had a.
Anyway, you'd have been like 6 years old.
Yeah. Anyway, so she was. She had this it looked like a gremlin, a tattoo, right? So I was like, oh, that's a. I was into that movie too. She goes, what movie? So, you know, Gremlins. That's a tattoo. And she goes, no, it's a tattoo of my daughter. I thought, what?
No, is that true?
And I looked at and I looked at it and I thought, what? How is that possible? And it turned out like the daughter had like all this makeup on. It must have been a photo with a bit of makeup and beads and stuff, and then she had her hair up in a way, and it just made it look like it was. Oh man! Yeah, I was like, all right.
Oh boy! Sorry. Wait. So what were you doing? Was this when you were a consultant?
What? Yeah, I was doing ultrasound. Yeah, and I was just I'm really sorry.
Did you leave the room?
But I think I managed to get it. I saw it at a different angle. I just didn't see it properly. And she was, oh yeah, don't worry about it. And then she was like talking about like how she loves tattoos, to get another one, and I should get a tattoo. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that, mate. I don't like needles. I don't mind stabbing you with a needle, but I'm not getting a needle anywhere near me, mate. Forget that. Yeah. No way.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh my god!
Yeah,
wow. The stuff that you get away with.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, I'm consultant. I can't do anything.
Yeah. Well, that leads us onto our next topic, actually, doesn't it? The bullies in the NHS. Although, like, I've marked this down as, we should discuss it, because I've written down bullies in the NHS, and someone had written. I think there was like a thread about people's experience of bullying. And someone, very kindly actually, the person who put the tweet said something along the lines of, if you've experienced it, then feel free to send me a DM and I can give you some advice and stuff. And interestingly, someone commented saying that some of the perpetrators of bullying are just simply people who have got to a point where they just are simply untouchable. They've got to a place where nobody can usurp them, so they're just there and they can say what they like. And then other people who kind of are just completely unaware of their behaviour being toxic, just stressed people.
But I think, did we speak about this or not? Like, it's just like your true personality. Oh yeah, we spoke about this, with the racism thing. Like, your true personality comes out, I think, when I think a lot of people's true personality comes out when they become untouchable. Like, and I think you get a glimpse of what people are like when you're driving. And I know it sounds crazy, but when you're driving, there's a very unlikely possibility that you're going to get called up on anything that you do. And so, you cut someone up or they cut you, you could be effing and blinding, right? But if you're walking down the street, right, and I bump into you, you'd be like, oh, sorry, Thrusha. Oh, sorry, Imran. Yeah, I didn't mean to bump into you like that. But you do anything similar in a car, you're gonna have a fight on your hands. That's what people are like. And the same you see again and again, like, when someone, people are, I don't need more than one car. Then they might make a lot of money and all of a sudden they're like buying 3 cars and stuff because actually they've got that in them. And I wonder whether it's the same thing when when you kind of you've got a side of your personality you didn't know you had, right? Or maybe you've always kept it down because you didn't have the power to be able to show, get away with it. Now you can get away with it. You pretty much do whatever you want. And like I was saying the other day, like, a consultant turns up half an hour late every day, no one's going to say anything. But a reg turns up half an hour late, people are going to have a problem with you.
Yeah,
so
sure. It's a marker of a person's personality, though, isn't it? A marker of their kind of their being and how they treat
who they really are.
Yeah, and how they treat people they don't have to be nice to.
Are you a nice driver? Do you get angry driving?
So if someone wrongs me, so I do drive like I think I'm a good driver, but my wife is like,
everyone says that.
Yeah,
everyone
right.
says that about
Whereas
themselves.
But the thing is, I enjoy it, so I throw the car around, and I have been told that I drive my car a bit like a go-kart, like I throw it around. But I don't think I'm aggressive. But if I do get nonsense from other people, I found that actually responding with aggression just brings about more aggression, and nobody ends up feeling satisfied afterwards. You're both like, and they're like, and then you're you're like, oh. And I remember like once this guy was like tailgating behind this ambulance as everyone was moving out of the way, and this guy was like tailgating behind them, and then he was like, ah, to everyone, like, going past, like, and everyone was like, what are you doing? Like, you're so out of order, like everyone's moving out of the way and you're just kind of like bombing in behind this ambulance, like behind us. And then I remember, I think maybe that was the day where it kind of struck me, like, just calling that guy a tosser, like he's just gonna be like, everyone else is wankers anyway. Whereas sometimes if you just like, hey, like thumbs up, and you kind of like give them like this really goofy smile, then it's really confusing and it creates a kind of distance. And so I like to do that. Like if someone does something really just really annoying, I'm just like, good one, and give like 2 thumbs up, and then it's like, huh? And so I like to do that. But I guess that's passive aggression, isn't it? But
I guess so.
I do that.
I mean, I like it when someone's really aggressive and they overtake you or undercut you, whatever, and then you catch up with them at the next traffic light. It's like, man, all that craziness, all that weaving in and out. And
how do you respond to the...
Hi!
How do you respond to that in the hospital? Have you ever had to respond to that kind of... do you have a technique?
Yes.
How do you manage it? Yeah, how do you manage it?
Well... No, I think recently... recently I had a situation which turned up where I think a patient was meant to get an ultrasound of their arm or something, and then for whatever reason it didn't happen, and for whatever reason this person whose patient it was thought it was my fault that this didn't happen, because I'd understand the hand but not the arm. And clearly I must have thought like, oh, well, I would never have not done it if I'd known that it needed to be done. Like, it's just a case of going from the hand and upwards. I mean, how hard is that? But clearly this person wasn't happy. They sent a letter to me saying, Dr. Lasker, I wanted also the upper arm to be done, and I can see it's been cancelled, and I need you to, this is completely unacceptable, and I want a letter as soon as possible to try and explain what happened. I need you to explain yourself. Yeah. And I thought, what are you talking about? Like, I have no idea who you are. I don't understand, like, I don't know who this patient is, yeah? If you want another scan, just go ask for another scan. I've got nothing to do with this. Like, I don't have a problem with doing it. Like I've said before, if I can scan more, I would scan more. It's not an issue. Yeah. I just ignored the letter. It's like, you know what, like, I don't have time for this, because it's also not my job to explain myself. Especially if I've got nothing to do with the situation, right? You can't suddenly be aggressive to me and say that. But then I was talking to my friend about it, and you actually, I'm not going to give away too much about it, but when you looked at it, who this person is, they're older. Okay, that's one thing. And they're not born from this country, but they're a consultant, right? And you take a step back, and how hard it must have been for someone from somewhere else, because I know what it's like from my parents and other people who tried to make it anywhere in that generation, the 70s and 80s. It was almost next to impossible to make it into a place of power or anything like that. So this person's clearly got there, and I thought maybe that's how they did it. They were aggressive. They're aggressive to get what they wanted, and that's how they did it. And so that's all they know. So I thought, there's no point in getting annoyed about it. That's just the way they are. But I still didn't do anything about it. I'm not.
Fair enough. I thought this was going to be like this redemptive arc where you like go and and then there'd be like mentor.
No. Seriously, man, I've got other things to do. I'm not going to go find some headed paper, write a letter, and then find out who to. But you could it's a half an hour, 40-minute job.
You could have done, and this would have been perfect. You could have like done a headed paper and then just done one line like, sure, I'd be happy to do it. Just send another request, and then just that's it. Like just willfully just misread their email and just reply to that one line.
Now, I've had a few encounters with this one, honestly. Like I think another one where they emailed. No, I mean they just emailed a whole load of people, copied them in, saying, "Oh, can you explain this bit?" They had 3 questions. So I was like, "Oh yeah, fair enough. I didn't answer the question that you're asking. No problems. I'll answer them." And I said, "Oh, by the way, there's no point in like including like admin and stuff. Like I'm happy to answer your question. Here's my phone number. Just call me whenever, right?" And then she copied everyone. This person copied everyone else again, saying, "I need you to answer these questions." And I was like, those are different questions now. I've answered the last 3 questions, now you've asked another 3 questions, so how long is this going to go on for? So I emailed again, "Hi, look, I think we've already had this discussion. Do you mind not copying everyone? It just wastes their time, there's no point, but I'm happy to answer questions. Here's my phone number, but these are the answer to your 3 questions, and these are the answer to your next 3 questions, which weren't the questions that you asked in the first place. I hope you do realise that." And then she replied, "That's so helpful, thank you so much." And she was so pleasant. And
maybe, so this could be just a thing where like her caps lock is locked or something,
No, but I just think. But this is what I think. I think this is the way the person works. This is how they need to get things done, because they've always had to fight. I'm sure of it. I mean, imagine how much I've had to fight to get to where I've got to, and I didn't have it half as bad as someone like this person or my parents and any of those. So like for them to be a little bit aggressive towards me, is like, yeah, whatever, it's all right. I'll just take it.
Speaking of things that make me want to fight, so there was this thread by Tom Oates, the consultant renal physician, who mentioned. Well, he kind of highlighted a thread that actually wasn't by him. I'm not sure why I mentioned him as if like. Anyway, he's really funny. You should follow him. But like Pete Turton, and he talked about how when he was a medical registrar, every week he'd get a call from a doctor with thyroid function tests and be like, and the question would be along the lines of, can you tell me what dose of thyroxine to give? Like, basically just telling him how to do his job, his or her job every single week. And then obviously there's a side of it which is like, well, this person's obviously doesn't know how to do it, so, you know, but then it's also like, this is another job for the medical registrar to do. Like, I mean, surely if you're having to do this every week like this, you should identify that there's a deficiency in your knowledge, and that at some point you should kind of try and rectify that situation, but instead it just falls upon the medical registrar. How do you feel?
It depends on the motivation. I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it? It really is tough. I mean, it depends on everyone's motivations. Like, for that person who's making that phone call to that medical registrar, like, they can't be bothered.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's just the way it is. Some people can't be bothered to learn something new or try and like fix the things that they're not good at.
But isn't it? It's beyond that, isn't it? It's a bit malignant. It's like, because everyone knows, or at least like it's the thing, isn't it? The medical registrar is really, really, really busy. It's really horrendous, and the buck always seems to stop with the medical reg. But everything is like, you know, like if you just look at the end of, like, all roads lead to Rome, all protocols lead to the medical registrar. Like at the very end, it's like, have you called the med reg yet? Like, have you tried the fire escape? Have you called the med reg? It's like, it's always there. It's always like there. And so like the poor med reg at the end is like, oh, okay. Because I remember when I was med reg, one thing that used to really wind me up was that every week, literally without fail, I'd get calls from microbiologists being like, oh, we've got these blood cultures results from over the weekend. They're taken through the week. These ones were done in A&E. These ones were done in surgery. These ones, and here are the results. And I'd be like, I don't even know how half of these patients have gone home. Half of these patients were never even under medicine even. And then they'd be like, oh, well, you know, we need to tell someone, so... And I'd be like, yeah, literally. And so and I'd be like, okay, like, I'll write these down. So then I'd be like, oh, trying to find out where these people are, like, trying to call, like, surgical doctors. And they'd be like, I don't know, you know, it's not my problem. And I'd be like, oh, it's my problem. It's still my problem.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because, I mean, on one hand, like we were talking about earlier, you want to be nice to your colleagues. You don't want to be... But at the same time, like when they start taking advantage of you, like, you know, giving you a list to do, which is, you know, like a portable ultrasound list that you weren't expecting, and they feel like they're taking advantage of the situation for you being nice.
Oh, is that what it was? But so, do you not think, like, so much stuff, like, dogmatically people will go, yeah, but the med reg does that. And that's it. That's like the final line. That's it. Oh, okay. That trumps anything that I was about to say because you said the med reg does it. And I'm the med reg, so that's
I don't know.
me.
It's tough, isn't it? I mean, you know, for getting called up every single week to get I mean, at some point you have to say, can you just not make an endocrinology referral and kind of actually find out a proper plan? Like, that's what I feel I would do. But then someone like this on the other side, they may be chancing every week, just hoping that they get the med reg is going to just be like, yeah, all right, just help you all the time. Yeah. Or, you know, all you need is 52 registrars.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough, isn't it? I don't know what I'd do in that situation. I think.
I mean, I just took it because at the end of the day, but I don't know. It was still.
Is it a situation of path of least resistance? Because I sometimes feel like that.
It always was.
Path of least resistance is just appease, move on. Don't have a long conversation. Don't make complaints. Move.
So much of being a med reg for me was like thinking to myself, "Oh my god, I really hate this," and then that feeling, I just push it really deep down inside me. And then I just have like indigestion, and I just move on. Oh, I hate this. Okay, here we go. I just file that in the I hate this column.
I don't know how you did that job, mate. I don't know how you did that job. There was just no chance of doing that job.
Well, are people still doing it? Oh my god, you know, I feel it's awful.
I feel bad for him. I've seen Mehul's tweets and stuff. Yeah, he's going through it now, isn't he? Poor guy, honestly. Heart goes out to you, mate.
But like, but the thing is, there's always going to be like a resilience lecture out there or whatever that you can do.
That was the best thing I'd read all week. Do you remember? So what was that? Did you see that? Did I send that tweet to you?
Yeah,
I sent that tweet to you, didn't I? Yeah. So they were saying, okay, we're going to have a resilience lecture every morning at 6:50 Friday AM. It's 6:50 in the morning. I mean, what a way to test resilience, to get everyone to turn up early morning at 6:50 AM. I mean, what time do you have to wake up? Like 5:45 to be able to get to that thing. It's just like
you're going to burn out. Just
that's resilience. Exactly. Honestly, sometimes you can't write this stuff. Like sometimes I feel like this is like some real weird comedy. Like the whole situation oh, manslaughter. You can't have biscuits. You can't be seen having coffee. It's like has to be a comedy. Are we living a comedy now? This is not a comedy situation. Like someone thought, let's do it.
Yeah, I reckon it's the same person who had that idea, isn't it? The same person who had the idea is also being like,
let's test resilience by making you wake up at a certain time. It's been a mad week.
Yes, we'll give the lecture that we give for soldiers in Iraq. Yeah, well, that's the same thing. Let's get them to do that. It's exactly the same situation. Let's get them.
And what on earth is a resilience lecture every single week going to be about? Like I know it's gonna be. I know the title is resilience, but like what possible after you do the first lecture, like what else is there more to say? Like,
it's going to be just like ridiculous stuff, isn't it? Take more exercise, drink plenty of water,
wake up early. Wake up early.
Literally, it's going to be that, isn't it? And it's just bonkers stuff, isn't it? Like just when you feel angry, when you next get called to prescribe that thyroxine, count to 10. Count to 10. What?
And then you have resilience.
Yeah, exactly.
Well done.
You have passed. Exactly. Mental.
Oh dear.
Oh god, I really wanted to share like a bullying story, but I think we've
go on. No, go for it.
I mean, it's just pretty much me ranting. It was when I was.
Tell me about your bullying story.
Okay.
I want to know. I want to know about your bullying story.
Okay, fine. Because it kind of ties in because like it was when I was a med reg and I got fast bleeped to an area. I think it was like a kind of clinical investigations part where basically people have blood transfusions and whatever, and basically this person had come, I think, for a venous section, but she hadn't had the venous section.
I thought you were about to say Venus, and I was all right. Okay, weird. Carry on.
Anyway, she'd come for venous section, but they were about to cannulate her and she passed out, and so they pulled the they kind of. Oh no, it wasn't a fast bleep, it was an arrest call. I remember the whole arrest team came. And it was like one of those things, we're like, oh, this is really far away. We're like, where is it in the hospital? We're like running around trying to look, and then we get there and like, it takes about 5 minutes to just get your breath. And then everyone's like, oh, the patient's alive, and then everyone just like turns away and walks off like without saying another word, like, we ran for nothing, and then I have to stand there because, it's still, I have to be like, well, what's going on here? And just this lady who was like, I just felt a bit faint. And I was like, oh, are you okay? And she's like, well, actually, for the last couple of days I've been having really bad abdominal pain. And I was like, oh, okay. Abdominal pain, that's a bit below the diaphragm.
Surgeons.
Surgeons. I think you might be needing the CT scan. So I was like, look. So I was like, oh no. And I said to the nurse, she was really nice, she was super nice. I was like, oh look, I think she's right, but she's been having abdominal pain, probably should get checked out. Maybe she should go to A&E. So she's like, oh, don't worry, I'll sort it out. So she, I kind of trucked back down to AMU to do a job done, and then I get this call from this A&E consultant, and he was like, "What the hell do you think you're doing, sending this medical patient to A&E?" And I was like, "Sorry, what medical patient's in A&E?" And then he's like, that patient who had the cardiac arrest, and I was like, cardiac arrest? Oh, I know you mean. Funny story. It wasn't actually a cardiac arrest. She'd had if she'd had a cardiac arrest, then that's kind of different, isn't it? I wouldn't just kind of plop her in a wheelchair and then just wheel her to it's ridiculous. But I don't want to point that out to her consultants. He obviously knew that, right? Anyway, so I was like, and I was like, well, she's having abdominal pain, and he's like, well, it's a medical issue because she had a cardiac arrest. And I was like, no, I think you missed that bit. Like, she has not had a cardiac arrest. She's just had a vagal. She just fainted. But she has got abdominal pain. I just thought, well. And then he's like, well, you should manage her on that. And then but then it just kind of went off into something else. So we'd kind of covered that topic twice. Okay, fine. Like, there's a fundamental disagreement there. But then he started saying stuff like, how long have you been working here? Do you know how it works here? And all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I've been working here quite a while. I was here as an SHO. Like, it's like my 3rd year here. Quite a long time. I know how it is. And he's like, I don't think you have any idea. I don't think you have any idea what you're talking about. And literally then it got to a point where he wouldn't even let me finish my sentences. I was like, bleh, bleh, bleh,
wow.
And like, and I speak really fast anyway, and I couldn't get the words in. Like, I was trying to squeeze the word in. I couldn't. And this guy was, and then, there's certain things that like upset me, and one is like making me say the same thing again and again, or two is not even letting me saying it at all. Like, I couldn't even say it the first time. So I was like, and it was really interesting kind of conversation, because in my head I was like, oh, this is like a kind of interview station, like where you deal with like someone really difficult. Because I remember being like, I literally said, I think this conversation's gone on long enough because I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not actually able to say anything to you. And he's like, what is your name? You know, and that kind of like thing. And I said, yeah, actually, you should take my name down because I'm definitely going to complain about you because I don't think this is any... literally, and I was like, all these words are coming out my mouth. Yeah, literally, I was like, I don't think that's any way you should speak to a colleague, actually. So yeah, take my name. I'll spell it for you. And then, because I know you're going to find that difficult. I literally was like, I know you're going to find that difficult, so I'm going to spell it for you. And like, suddenly I was just like, and I was like, who is this person who's speaking for me? Yeah, literally. And I took this person's name down. And I complained everywhere. I complained because I thought he was a penis, and everyone was like, "Oh yes, he is actually. He's a penis." And everyone's like, "Yeah, he is." But what do you want to do about it? And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, what I want? I just want him to not be a dick. Like, that's all I wanted." People were like, "Where do you want this to go?" And I'm like, "Where do I want it to go? Like, I don't know." I just want him.
There's an undertone there, don't you think? It's like, how far do you want to take this?
Yeah, literally. And I was like, and they're like, because, you know, he's a consultant, you're a trainee, and what if he kind of throws back like, is this a trainee in distress? And I was like, oh, so that's how it could go. And then I was like, oh, do I... And I was like, oh, I don't care. And then, like, and the thing is that I've seen this guy around, and literally all I was thinking to myself was, this is a guy who would not speak to me like as you're saying with the casting. If it was out in the streets, he would not speak to me like that because I would annihilate him because I'm just so. And so I was like, well, but then what? So what? That's cool. He's just going to speak to people like that, like.
But that's the thing. That's what I think. True personality comes out. Yeah. He's in a position of power. And he's wielding it. That's what that. And I see that all the time. Like I've actually seen registrars who are really nice registrars, and as soon as they become a consultant, actually don't. I know Thrush, you're going to say that's me. I'm not. That's not me. But they actually become very, very difficult people to work with. Yeah. Very, very difficult. Like and you know they pull all sorts of fast ones, left, right, and centre. So it's a thing, isn't it?
Yeah. But the thing is, like, I think that's the problem, isn't it? Where we don't have like proper. I don't know, you know, I'm just kind of complaining, but I'm not really suggesting an alternative because, like, I just feel like there's no real framework. Like, you can complain.
Well, actually,
what?
I was talking to someone who worked in PwC, and they were telling me that actually, you know, how you upward mentorship. So you know, let's say, I guess from my position now, I could be a mentor for someone, you know, who's a registrar or below. But actually, they have a backward mentorship for you to have a mentor who's, you know,
junior,
in quotation marks below you. Yeah. And they give you, you know, honest feedback, and that's actually part of the whole appraisal. It's very, very important for people in the industry, and that's something that I thought would be really, really good to have. You know, it'd be nice to know like what a reg really thinks of me, or you know what someone really thinks of, you know, my interaction with them when I'm working with them. But you think because that's an opportunity for growth. Like, yes, you're in a position of power now, but how are you using it? I mean, there's a way I think I'm using it, but how am I really using it? How do people feel? Don't you think?
That's a really good suggestion. No, I think that's a really good idea. Why don't we do that?
I wish we could, but you know, I ain't going to change the world. Well, I finished my job at 5. I'm done.
I think this is probably time, Imran, but I think we should probably stop on that because that was a right gem. I haven't heard that one before, but I think that is something we should implement.
It's a nice one, isn't it? Yeah. Well, maybe someone on Twitter could show us how to do it. Backward mentorship, man, like the people in PwC, so that we learn from each other.
We need to be more like PwC.
Yeah, I mean. Evidently, there's a lot of corporate things I think we could. I mean, my wife was corporate, and there was a few things she talked about. I thought,
it's quite nice.
Why don't we not do that? You know, and I'll talk about a few books that I've read that I think would be useful in the NHS at some point. I'm sure it'll come up in conversation. But anyway, cool. I think been a very interesting week as usual. Thank you so much. We've actually had a record number of downloads this week. Unbelievable. So thank you so much for everyone that's listening. Hope you're still enjoying listening to me and Thrusha rabbit on about various things. We do have a YouTube channel as well if you want to see what Thrusha looks like.
Yeah, I know. I was just realising.
Pretty funny to watch.
I know. I just realised I could see some Bollywood body hair there. Sorry about that.
There you go. Yeah. He's showing you. So you might be listening to this in your car and you want to know what Thrusha's body hair looks like. No, it's on YouTube. Go ahead, enjoy it.
My wife does. All right, cool. Hang up.
Oh dear. All right. Have a good week, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
All right. Bye.